the diner this morning in Washington, D.C. We're talking about the President's State of the Union address. In it, the President pushed for a level playing field for all, calls it the defining issue of our time, and also called for a 30% tax on million-dollar earners. Republican Congressman Jeb Hensarling of Texas joins us this morning on Capitol Hill. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
We appreciate that.
Thanks, Elder.
Thank you. First and foremost, your thoughts on the President's speech last night.
Well, Soledad, I'm usually encouraged by what I hear the President say. I'm just usually discouraged by what he does. I mean, to some extent, he acted like he parachuted into town last night. He's been here for 3 years. All of his major policies have been enacted: the $1 trillion stimulus plan, his health care plan, the Dodd-Frank plan. Each and every time he told us that if we would pass these, the economy would improve and that jobs would grow. And instead, what has happened? Almost 2 million more Americans have lost their jobs on his watch, and we have the highest sustained period of high unemployment since the Great Depression. And so, unfortunately, his policies have failed, and we wish that he would try something new. It's a new year. Republicans brought to him the Keystone Pipeline. Last night, the President said he wanted more jobs. He said he wanted more American energy independence. Then it begs the question, why did he just bury 20,000 shovel-ready American jobs? So in that respect, it was disappointing.
I'm going to stop you there, sir, just so I can go through. I hear you, and I appreciate it. Let me stop you for a second so I can go back to your first point, and then we'll talk a little bit about the pipeline issue as well, because some people have said that's not 20,000 jobs. Others have said more like 6,000 jobs. But let's go back to a minute for what you said about the 2 million jobs lost. And I have a graphic because I want to parse through those numbers a little bit. When you look at that number more specifically, right? In 2008, right before the crisis, it was down 3.6 million jobs. And then 2009 dropped, right, down 5 million jobs. That's in the months and the first year of the crisis. But then look at this number in 2010, plus 943,000 jobs, right? So 2011 up 1.5 million jobs. Isn't this the graphic exactly sort of symbolic of an improvement in the jobs? That decline was really at the start of a crisis that came from President Bush?
These aren't my figures. These come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I mean, check it out. Here are the facts. Since President Obama has become president,
but I think
almost 2 million more people have lost their jobs. That's the fact. Listen, we want our economy to improve, and by any historic standard, we should have already been in full recovery. And in fact, had this recovery followed the trend of all the previous post-war recoveries, Americans would be thousands of dollars richer, and there'd be millions more employed. But the bottom line is the policies of this president, where he threatens more taxation, where he's drowning business in red tape with his health care program, where he is bankrupting our nation, bringing our nation's first $1 trillion deficit, second and third. I mean, he's caused small businesses to no longer want to create businesses or hire new people. The president cannot escape responsibility for this economy. Republicans have a plan for America's job creators, and in fact, we have 27 jobs bills that are stacked up like cordwood, and Democrat Harry Reid won't do anything with them. The president won't do anything with them. So again, when the president speaks of bipartisanship, he's not practicing it.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. And here's a little bit of what the president did say last night about bipartisanship. Listen.
We need to end the notion that the two parties must be locked in a perpetual campaign of mutual destruction. That politics is about clinging to rigid ideologies instead of building consensus around common sense ideas.
So where do you see that as being possible, building consensus around common sense ideas? Take off for me just 3 points. Here, here, and here is where Democrats and Republicans could theoretically work together.
Well, theoretically, if you listen to the president's speech, you would think fundamental tax reform to make the tax code fair, flatter, simpler, something Republicans put in our budget, but the president opposed it. We brought it up. I was on the super committee. We brought it up in the super committee. It's well documented. Democrats opposed it. And so I don't know. I would like to believe what the president says, but somehow when it gets down to actually governing, it just seems that he's more interested in campaigning than governing. I hope that would be a place where we could work together. The president talks about American energy independence, but again, he just buried the Keystone Project, had bipartisan support, had strong labor union support. It's been studied for over 3.5 years, and he just said no, so that these jobs are going to possibly be shipped to China along with the energy. So I'd like to believe what the president said. And again, I typically agree with 80% of what he says. I just disagree with 80% of what he does. And so what disappoints me, Soledad, again, is I just, you know, he can't run on his record. So what we see is a lot of the politics of envy and division because he can't run on his record, and that's disappointing.
Congressman Jeb Hensarling is a Republican from Texas. Nice to have you. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Turning back to our